basically your lesson on urban legends was really fun. I think it's a topic that's pretty easy to make fun for kids. I mean, everybody likes creepy stories.
Yeah. They're like violent.
I think you did a really good job.
Yeah.
They're sixth graders, yeah?
Yeah, sixth grade.
That seems like a good age for creepy stories.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the things that were really good about the lesson, everything was really clear. All the expectations were really clear. And it was very obvious that the students have kind of been trained to know what to do when you ask them to do something, which made everything really smooth. Especially the transition into group work, what the expectations were, what the objective was. Watching that go down was really impressive.
Michelle, Papa's working.
You just kind of told the kids what to do. They repeated back what they were expected to do, and then they did it. The way the classroom was set up was really good for the group work too. The pods of students. And the kind of routine it seems like you set up for the kids made what could have been kind of like a hard amount of material to pack into one lesson go really smoothly, and it let all the kids have a chance to speak if they wanted to. So it was really good. I thought it was good the way that you kind of made the material more accessible for the kids and kind of elicited information from them as opposed to giving them information. That, I think, kept at least the kids who were already pretty engaged, super engaged. Also, hi, guy.
Michelle, go find mommy, okay? Go give this to, Michelle, go give this to mommy. She needs this, okay? Go give that to mommy.
See ya.
Go give that to mommy, okay? Sorry about that.
No problem.
Forgot to lock the door.
I think it's probably like that, especially like an intro lesson like that. There's probably less chance to really get kids kind of, talking to each other or kind of like giving ideas, because an introduction is usually supposed to be a teacher introducing a topic, right? You did a really good job of everywhere it was possible to get them to give you the information that you would have given them in the lecture. You did, which was nice. It kept the kids, on point and engaged. The class was fun. You kept it light, and even I think there were a few points, I mentioned this in the reflection, but there were a few points where things got a little bit like chit-chatty with the kids. The kids were kind of, it wasn't hands raised, calling on the kid, but the kids were kind of talking over each other, but not in a negative way. It made the class feel like you guys were just kind of chatting about something, and you did a good job of like controlling it and cutting it off before it got out of control, but it made the class feel like a community as opposed to a lecture, which again in an intro lesson I think is kind of hard. That was really cool. I think the group work was good. The way the class was set up was good. The one thing I mentioned about the physical setup in the classroom was maybe it was just this lesson or where the camera was, but some of the kids who were faced away from you had to do a lot of like turning their heads when you're speaking. And I don't know if it's just because the whiteboard's there and you have to use the whiteboard a lot, but maybe a little bit more like moving through the classroom when you were explaining things could have helped out some of those kids.
Yeah.
But it's also just kind of an inevitability of having it set up like that. Somebody is going to have to turn around and see the teacher.
Yeah, and I try to face them as much as possible so that they're facing toward me. But in order to keep the groups,
sure,
them facing each other most of the time, there's always at least one or two kids that are, facing away.
Do you change the groups up much, or like let the kids kind of rotate where they're sitting in their group much?
Well, I was thinking of doing that, having them like rotate seats, like do a seat rotation in their groups, but haven't done it yet. It's only been a few weeks since we started.
Really?
So I'm thinking maybe I'll do that every month. So maybe on Monday when I go in, I'll shift up the groups a little bit.
If it's only been a couple of weeks, I'm impressed with the way you have them like trained already.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's the rules at the beginning, like the rules, and then the expectations. Everything's like, you might not have been able to see it, but on the board I have the the desk arrangement, how it's supposed to look. I have like a copy of it on the board, and the first thing they're supposed to do is arrange the class that way in case anybody because we move classrooms, so sometimes different teachers come and move stuff around and like shift it up. So they know that they have to set it up in that way with the 5 small groups every day.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, that even gives the kids more like ownership of the physical space too, and means less work for you. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I figure by 6th grade they need to be somewhat independent. So tell them what I want them to do, and then they do it.
Hopefully.
Well, if they don't do it, they end up with extra homework, or I call their parents.
Sure. The
Michelle, Papa's working.
anyway, lesson plan you had, there weren't really any written out assessments, like formative assessments. But I was looking for ones that it seemed like were kind of already built into the lesson. Some of the reporting, or you giving maybe individual feedback to students while they're working, maybe especially the students who you already know maybe are struggling with the material and need an extra hand.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was there. I guess it just wasn't explicit in the lesson plan, which no big thing. And the way 21st century creepypasta came in was cool. I noticed your classroom had a TV. The only thing I was trying to think of, like, a way to make what's already a really engaging topic maybe more engaging for the kids. At the beginning, when you're kind of eliciting, like, what are some urban legends that you maybe know? Maybe showing a clip of film that everyone's already pretty familiar with as just kind of like an opener, and going like, do you know this movie? What's this about? What's the story about? Like a teaser. Might be an interesting way to just like kind of start the lesson off, kind of multimedia. But other than that, I mean, that was a really good intro lesson. I'd like to see the next couple lessons and see where it goes, because it seems like it's setting it up.
I already taught the rest of it. It was a 1 week unit. It's like a miniature unit in a bigger unit. So it's
cool.
it's the whole unit is all about different tales and stories and things like that. And then so we did cautionary tales the last 2 weeks, and then this week was urban legends, and then next week is something else. I can't remember. Something else.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, it was you're a super, kind of walking that thin line between being very professional and very like warm and open in the classroom, which I think is like the greatest thing a teacher at that age can do. Not be scary, but also have the kids understand that they're in a learning environment. We're not friends, but we can be friendly. It was really good.
Yeah. I basically tell everybody I'm like a giant 12-year-old, so I work really well with the kids.
Yeah, I'm basically a giant 5-year-old, so it's works for me too.
All right. So I'm going to give you some feedback on yours then, I guess, and we'll get through this because I have to leave by 2 my time. So your lesson, you were teaching 2 little munchkins.
Yes.
And doing something related with numbers, introduction to comparing numbers. I noticed you said the topic was introduction to comparing numbers, but it seemed kind of like it was more focused on comparing them, but more just which one was greater. You didn't get into like less than, which, I guess it's not that big a deal because they might like, is that maybe the next lesson then would be less than?
Yeah, it's kind of like for my math classes, I don't do things as much in like structured day-to-day, but kind of have activities like cycle through daily. But the plan is starting with just greater than being kind of a pretty readily understandable idea, and then other activities with less than, other activities with equal to, and then by the end of the unit, then kind of switching up, the greater than activity, but change it to less than, just to keep them from getting too confused at the beginning.
Okay. All right, so let's go through here. Objectives, were the objectives clear? Yeah, I thought that, I didn't see anything like what I do. I always write my objective on the board, and that's like one of the first things we talk about is like, okay, we're going to be learning this today. It didn't seem initially clear that they knew what they were doing based purely at the beginning like I do, but it was obvious that they understood everything because they got all of the answers right. So they definitely understood what you were asking of them. They got all through that. So the objective was clear to them, even if it wasn't explicitly stated at the beginning. And even if you did, I don't think they would have cared particularly too much about it.
Yeah.
This is the problem I had the whole time I was trying to do this observation. I was like, but I don't teach 5-year-olds, and I'm not sure how I would do that.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, I don't think there's really a downside to doing it, but then again, sometimes you kind of go like, what's the point? Like, I don't know. I always think that
as long as they get it, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Like, just tell them like every single thing, right?
And even like, I think that they kind of somewhere in the middle of an activity like that, I kind of want them to go like, oh, I see what we're doing, as opposed to starting with this is where we're going to get.
Yeah.
But it isn't a bad idea to be more explicit about what the objectives are at the beginning.
Yeah. And it's not like, can they read yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yes to it. Yeah.
Yes. So at that point, maybe like at the very beginning, you could like on this is just like my idea right now that I came up with, but maybe like have like a piece of paper with like what you're going to be learning and just kind of stick it up behind you on the board so that like they just see that.
It's not a bad idea because they're kind of also transitioning from just being able to read to being able to pull, solid information and instructions out of reading. So that might be a good way to just like integrate other goals into the math lessons. That's a good idea.
Yeah. But I'm really being nitpicky about that. Let's see, student learning. It was super student centered, at least from what I could gather from it. It just seemed a little bit more like it seemed really student centered, but very teacher directed, which is good.
Yeah.
And I really, as I was watching that, I'm like, I'd like to see them like work back and forth between them. And then I was thinking, but they're like 4 or 5, and probably they need that extra like guidance into doing it. But I'll get more on that later. Yeah. Higher level thinking skills, and just explain, compare, contrast, examine, distinguish, construct. I think that was the best activity that I saw was when they actually made their own at the very end, the you do it alone one. That was really good. They were engaged throughout the lesson. I'd suggest, here we go, suggestions. I would suggest maybe having them practice at the very end before they went to their summative assessment. This is what I was thinking is like maybe have them go back and do it, like make their own and compare it to each other. But then I also was thinking like, it's possible because I'm not an expert on little kids. Maybe they like the kid that had the stack that's less than would feel upset that he had the less than stack. Or maybe they would just keep going with all of them and spend all that time until they like used all the blocks and had this massive thing that falls over and makes a mess. So,
yeah, that's always a possibility.
Yeah,
it's funny how kids at that age, especially boys, bigger is just better, and so it's hard to play even like war, like compared to a game like that. It's very hard to communicate like, no, you're not winning. It's just bigger. They can kind of get a little overboard with that.
Yeah, so I mean, that's kind of something maybe to consider is like maybe have them do it on their own. Maybe after they have the full understanding of greater than and less than, maybe that would work. Physical space, I could only see what the camera was pointed at, so it was hard to tell what the classroom itself looks like. But the spot on the floor, that mat looked really nice. Is that like a mat or is that like a blanket or?
That's a mat. Yeah, it's a mat.
Okay, and the desks, like they looked, learning environment-esque. There was nothing particularly like bad with it, especially with only 2 kids. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, what the learning environment is set up as long as you're close enough to those 2. Formative assessment.
We had a couple of kids who were absent that day, and class sizes really fluctuate a lot term to term. Sometimes there's a lot more. Sometimes there are only 2. So I probably in hindsight should have gotten more of the classroom in the shot.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was good for what it had. So
it's also hard because kids, you can't tell a kid like, I'm going to record this. Don't pay attention to the camera. You kind of have to turn it on without them noticing, or else it is just kids staring at a camera and waving the whole time.
Yeah, that's what I found in the classroom. Whereas like the only kids that could see it are the ones that were facing that way anyway. A couple of them waved, but I edited a lot of that out. See, formative assessments. The assessments look good. There was like a really, really clear progression of like from the beginning to the end. So I thought that was probably the best thing. The summative assessment at the end, that's the one thing that I was like thinking maybe 3 is too few, especially since you kind of gave them the first answer on your own anyway. So then like they're only really doing 2 on their own. So maybe give it like have 4 or 5. And also I noticed that you were teaching them up to 10, like numbers through 10, using numbers through 10. And then on the die, it only had 6. So maybe using like dominoes instead.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. So that they can, compare those higher numbers too on the summative assessment, or make it like progressively more difficult. Like start with like 2 die and then have like 2 dominoes with like increasing numbers. That could be really good.
No, I think that's a really good idea, because I would struggle. Die are great, but until you start bringing in things that normally would go into D&D, you can't really get above a 6.
Yeah, get a D20.
Yeah, blow their minds.
3 on dexterity. Oh man. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much all I said. The summative assessment was great. Everything that I saw was really good, and I like that you got the whole lesson was done in a short time. It didn't seem like you had to edit very much.
No, it's just them walking to the table.
Yeah, it was like start to finish. Yeah, so it was a good activity.
That's the one, like, the one thing I'll say is just watching your video too and realizing, like, boy, teaching sixth grade is a lot different than teaching kindergarten. Like, just the idea of planning a 40 or 50-minute chunk of class,
Yeah,
dealing with one thing. The attention spans just aren't there. Like, that's just literally impossible. So you just have to have bite size. Going past 10 minutes in any one thing, you're pretty much guaranteed to lose them.
yeah,
So you got to just like stick and move and revisit and revisit and revisit, as opposed to just getting things done in the lesson,
yeah.
which makes it a little bit tricky.
Yeah, I mean, it's also the reason why almost none of my activities, with the exception of group work, almost nothing is longer than 10 minutes, even in sixth grade. Like, you'll have like an activity that's like 5-minute reading, 10-minute do this, 5 minutes do this. And I always like plan out all the times that I want to do. And again, group work is the only exception, or individual writing.
Yeah, I did. I like that, looking at watching your lesson and reading the lesson plan. It was cool to see how, watching the lesson, it was pretty clear where the transitions were happening, but they didn't feel like they were, jerking transitions where you're just grinding the gears. They all felt really organic and smooth. And then looking at the lesson plan, seeing how planned they were, it was good. Like, I agree. It was, a lesson plan where you do just have little bite-sized chunks that flow together. Makes, you're kind of ensuring that it's not going to drag.
Yeah,
that was good.
Yeah. And it's not all me. It's also the way Cambridge sets stuff up. So it is partially Cambridge itself.
Sure.
Cambridge does that, and then I implement it, and it works really well. But yeah, that's all I've got.